everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Mastering Dungeons, your favorite tabletop role-playing game news and game design and dance fever and glam rock and all that cool stuff. I'm Shawn Merwin here with Teos Abadia. Hey, Teos, how goes it?
Shawn, man of the hour, Tower of Power. It goes much better this week. I am 90% less phlegmatic than I was a week ago. I think I'm on the recovery train. All aboard. Cool. Really excited.
Yeah, I am still suffering a little from. It was called con crud, but I heard a new term for it, nerd flu. And so I am still at the tail end of the nerd flu that accompanies Gen Con every year, but we're hanging in there. And I have to say, Teos, I was very, very excited to learn that on podtail.com, Mastering Dungeons is the 159th most popular podcast in Iceland.
You go, Iceland. So, take that 160th podcast, whatever you may be, in your face.
To all our Icelandic listeners, we thank you so much.
Especially
we couldn't have done it without you. And I got to play the Aberration board game this weekend from Ghostfire Gaming. I'd had it. It's been sitting there. Yeah. Finally, I took some time. I convinced my family, hey, let's play this. We played it once. And normally for these sort of like complex games, I have to beg them to play. And then it's like, okay, we get through it. And then, okay.
Sure.
We played a short version and they're like, can we play again? I'm like, okay. So we played again and we finished the second episode of it. And they're like, can we play tomorrow morning? And I'm like, okay. So yeah, very excited.
Congratulations.
That game is going well. It might be in stores soon. It may be in transit still, but if people are interested, check it out. It's called Aberration, and it's from Ghostfire Gaming.
And is it episodic the way, like, say, those D&D board games were, that you can play different storylines, or is it living, like, in the sense of, like, you're applying stickers and things are changing?
It's not a campaign mode game. It's a reset after each one.
Okay. Yeah.
But there may be some down the line more campaign mode ways to play.
Neat.
But right now, I think there are 16 scenarios in the book, and you can play those, and then you can make up your own scenarios after that.
I dig it.
Yeah. I dig our listeners because they're awesome. And they send us questions, and we sometimes take those questions and read them and try to answer them. And so we're going to do some of that right now, starting here with Andy Demps via our Patreon Discord. Asks, did Wizards of the Coast and D&D get so much scrutiny in previous editions? I know people griped in letters to Dragon Magazine in the TSR days, but is the current atmosphere new, perhaps because of unpredicted access to information analysis and online communication? Teos, you have the perfect answer for this question.
Yeah, I'm holding in my book Playing at the World by John Peterson, and he writes about this. And when I read this, I mean, my jaw dropped because I'd sort of understood this, but it was really something. He shares around OD&D how the different releases are reacted to by fans. And there is so much critical discussion on message boards, in print, in fanzines, everywhere. And it actually changes Dungeons and Dragons. So Gary literally creates the ADD and DMG. If you wondered why there's so many rules and subsystems and options, and later you hear, Gary doesn't use 99% of them. Well, it was as a reaction to all of that. Well, the game needs this, the game needs that. I'm going to make that. So the DMG and AD&D is an attempt to cut them off at the pass and prevent them from creating all these subsystems by just drowning you in them, right? And Playing at the World, the book has some of the criticism for a later original Dungeons and Dragons release, Blackmoor. And this supplement comes out, and here are some quotes. A bomb. A waste of $5. A great disappointment after Greyhawk, which was the previous supplement. An empty few pages of paper. Reading the backs of cereal boxes would enlighten you more. And it's worth pointing out, as today, despite all that criticism, it sold really well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Our world is so interconnected now because of social media, because of the internet, because of
Mm-hmm.
all the technology that lets us talk and listen to each other, whether we actually listen or not. And so it's so much easier for an individual to find exactly the kind of rage or influence or support that they need. I remember when the Unearthed Arcana hardcover book for AD&D came out.
Yeah,
And my home group, I mean, we were teenagers, and my home group raged about what a money grab it was, right? This one book that was several years later, uh, they were upset about, right? So yes, this it's always
totally.
been there.
Yeah,
It's just totally amplified now because of the technology and the world in which we
yeah,
live.
yeah. And I think maybe one of the things that, well, even back then it happens is that because some people are complaining in that bubble, people assume everybody's complaining, right? So I think
Mhm,
that if you subscribe to one of these fanzines, you would assume, oh yeah, everybody's hacking the system because they're so disappointed in it, rather
mhm,
than we in this small bubble are saying the
mhm.
following.
Yeah. I would get feedback on Adventures for Living Greyhawk, and we'd put out the adventure, and I'd hear everyone hates this adventure. Everyone thinks this is too hard. And I'd be like, could you be more specific? Who's everyone? Well, everyone at my game store. Okay. How many people at your game store? 7. The DM and the players. I'm like, that's everyone. That's
Mhm.
everyone at the game store of 1,000 people playing this. Um, you may be surprised to know that other people think it's okay or liked it, and I can share with you that feedback if you'd like. So yeah,
I,
it's
I always loved in the
people.
old Wizards of the Coast forums that were used for part of 3 and 4E. There was no adventure that I saw that didn't have somebody say this is way too easy and somebody complain about the
Yep,
TPK they had and how unfair it was.
way too
You
hard.
just
Yep.
there's always that variance, right? Now I think there is a truth out there, right? You can say
Mhm.
certain adventures are really well regarded overall, but the possible experience is really the whole gamut. And that for those people, what they experience is the only experience often, right? Unless they've seen this effect before.
Okay, our next question is from Cade Jordan via YouTube. Are Daggerheart, Drawsteel, and Cosmere released so close together that they're cannibalizing each other? Teos, what do you have to say about that?
First, I have to laugh that Matt Colville commented on our last main segment, saying that to him it was really clear which was the best RPG out there. I
Okay.
love that. But I thought this was a really neat question, and I found myself bouncing around a bit. Like, yeah, it's hard to be sure. Are these all cannibalizing each other? I mean, probably in that gamers that are gamers have a limited amount of time and money, and so to some extent, you may not be able to buy all 3 of these, even if all 3 interest you, and you may not have the time to run all 3, even if all 3 interest you, right? And so it's that question of maybe could the addition could these games be so energizing people and
Mhm.
offering enough excitement that more DMs come in and more players, more people who buy it, who will play it, such that if, say, somebody who was a D&D fan is playing Cosmere, or somebody was going to go for Draw Steel decides to go for Daggerheart, it doesn't matter because, well, new of all of them are coming in all the time. That would be the ideal thing, right? I think.
Mhm.
What do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah. I agree. You might not know this about me, but I can be pedantic sometimes. Yes, I know it's hard to believe. But so when I read cannibalize, that means different things to different
Mm.
people. And so in this context, I think what it means is taking players away from each other. So the question that you and I, Teos, talk about all the time is, can any of these new games bring new people into the industry rather than just taking away from people that already are in the industry?
Mhm.
That's why we talk about D&D. That's why we talk about Hasbro. That's why we talk about Wizards of the Coast. in terms of their market share, in terms of their sales, in terms of their stock prices, all of that. Because we know that Wizards of the Coast and D&D and Hasbro bring new players who aren't in the hobby into the hobby.
Yeah.
And that's why we need Wizards of the Coast to succeed. That's why we need D&D to succeed. The question for me is more about what can these other games do to bring new people in as opposed to just taking away players from other
Right.
games.
Move them from one
That's
game to the
why,
other. Yeah.
right. That's why I see Cosmere, and I hope that people who are Brandon Sanderson fans, who might not be D&D players,
Mhm.
will become role-playing game players because of that game. I hope that people who've watched Critical Role or listened to the show or watched the Amazon series will say, oh, it's based on role-playing games. Let me try that.
Right.
Draw
Yeah.
Steel. I don't know if they have an outside influence, right? People watch Matt's videos, but the people who watch Matt's videos are generally already in the hobby or adjacent to the hobby. So I don't know if there are new people coming in completely into the hobby for that reason. Um,
Mm.
so the question of cannibalize is an important one. It also reminds me of the game, the big box game that was so popular, and then they made Frost something.
Oh,
Gloomhaven.
yeah. Hmm.
Gloomhaven, right? Gloomhaven, very popular board game. People were flocking to it. It did great Kickstarter. And then they did a RPG.
Hmm.
Does anyone play that RPG?
Hmm.
If we go through the list of games that were played at Gen Con,
Mm.
I bet I would not see the Gloomhaven RPG on that list in the top
Right.
50
Yeah.
games,
I'm pretty
right?
sure of that.
So that Kickstarter did great, but that Kickstarter did great because they were selling things for the board game.
Yeah. So I
And
just
I don't
searched the
know.
list, by the way, and I didn't
Yeah,
find it because I
exactly.
happen to have it in an Excel spreadsheet.
Which tells me that that was a brand that could have brought board gamers
Mm.
into the RPG, tabletop RPG space, but probably didn't.
Mm. Right.
But
Right.
it also wasn't a popular RPG as far as I can tell because no one's
Yeah.
playing it. So no harm, no foul. Uh, it's a wash in terms of bringing
Yeah.
new people in versus cannibalizing existing players.
Yeah, and there's even an angle here. There was a question on YouTube that one of the comments that asked us, it kind of said, in our previous show where we talked about this idea of different options in the RPG space that we have now, said, you didn't mention Free League, and that was one I thought about mentioning, but there's only so much time in a show. But Free League is
Right.
fascinating because when you come to this topic of cannibalizing, they are making lots of different RPGs
Yep.
all in one house. And I have often asked myself, hey, do you ever run into the problem, Free League, of you're selling me on Blade Runner, on Alien, on
Mhm.
One Ring, on Vaesen, on just an endless Tales from the Loop. I mean, there's so many.
Mhm.
Are you almost competing with yourself the way that TSR did with box set campaign settings, right? And I think,
Right.
right now the answer is not really. Like, we're gaining more than we're
Yeah.
losing because we're creating excitement for these brands. And you might just even want to buy them to put them on the shelf or to play them for a bit. Alien is
Mhm.
probably not your every day for, every week for
Yeah.
years game. It's your every now and then. And so I think they're creating these experiences and really beautiful books that you don't mind owning, even if you only use them but so much. And so maybe it works.
Mhm.
Will they down the road run into the problem? Maybe, and it
Yeah.
comes back to that key question of, can you bring in enough people and create enough excitement to where you're just growth and we don't have to worry about this cannibalizing aspect?
For sure. We have a question from Scipio202 via our Patreon Discord. I just lost it. There it is. If you could have one D&D spell, level 3 or lower, in real life, which one would you pick? And I gave this question more thought than I should have. And some of the obvious ones, I said no because they kill things. And I don't want to kill things. I don't want to have the ability to kill things. Uh, like it's like giving someone with a really, really bad temper a firearm. It's not necessarily a good call. So the one that kept coming back to mind was actually prestidigitation
Yeah.
because it's flexible, it's utile. I need to clean the house. Boom, 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 done. I need to do something cool and a party trick. Done. It's not like magic missile where I'm destroying something. The second one that came to mind was cure wounds because right, that would be super handy, and it would answer all of these questions that cure wounds actually bring up when you start thinking about it a little deeper. Right? Oh, you broke your leg. Does cure wounds mend the leg,
Mm-hmm.
or does it just give you hit points? Uh, you got a cut. I guess cure wounds. Does it leave a scar where the
Yeah.
cut was? Uh,
Does it help your bad back? Does it help your
right.
sciatica? Your
Exactly. Exactly. Right. I'm a little nearsighted.
uh-huh. Oh
Can,
yeah.
can you
Right.
can you fix that? So that's a question that I was working on this system in Grim Hollow for permanent wounds and different ways to show this damage narratively, but also mechanically. What exactly do these healing spells do? So all of that
Yeah.
came from this one simple question and like 2 hours of me
That's love it.
going, I need to get work done, but wait, what about this?
For me, this I had a very similar train of thought to yours, which is the classic like, what do you, if you could have one superpower, what do you wish it would be, right?
Yeah.
And I always go with or I've always gone with telekinesis,
Hmm.
which is a fifth level spell, so it doesn't quite work. But it's like your
Hmm.
prestidigitation. It's that idea that just, oh, I need the remote. I need to move that
Hmm.
over there. I need that. Oh, just constant. And if you push it a little bit,
Hmm.
maybe I can push myself. So it's almost like flying or levitating, right? You can get extra benefits
Yeah.
from it. So a telekinesis like thing is just always has always been my go-to until recently. As
Mm.
I got past the 40s, and started the late 40s, I started realizing that what really impedes my life more than anything else is these little pains, right? Back pains,
Hmm.
things like that. When you pull a muscle and it bothers you for a
Hmm.
month, it's just absolute trash. And the gift of life and humbling you. But if I
Yeah.
could cure those things away, whether it's lesser restoration, cure wounds, whatever it might be, that's the one that I would go with because it just comes up a lot. And if you could get that gift to other people, right? Someone would say,
Hmm.
your parents, right? Somebody would say like, "Oh, this thing's bugging me." You could just touch them and make that go away. Oh, wow. Right? That'd be
Yeah.
amazing.
That would be excellent question. Thank you for wasting half of my day with that. Next, we have the Mathemagician via our Patreon Discord. What's the most interesting bit of game design that you've seen lately, and why did it stick in your mind? I have two answers for this, so I'm going to give one, Teos, and then I'm going to let you give one, and then I'll give the other. The thing that's been most in my mind recently has been the sort of modular teaching elements that we see in the new starter set that we see with Daggerheart, which borrows from earlier implementation of such things from role-playing games and board games. So you start with the board, which has just a little bit of information. Then you put this card on your board that gives you a little bit more information. That sort of teaching implementation, I think, is hugely important if we're going to grow this game. And we talk about growing the game a little bit in our main segment with Shelley Mazzanoble talking about her new book. So check that out as well. But I think it's that sort of thing that has my attention the most because I've been working in that area a little bit more.
Yeah, fantastic. The Daggerheart innovations have definitely been on my mind, but to do something a little different, I'll say that the one that has been most lasting, like it shows up on my table, it occupies my brain space the most, would be the exploration system that is in the One Ring, where
Mhm.
they have a really kind of neat way of declaring roles, but the roles aren't about a mechanic so much that would let you say, get a bonus to your survival check or something like that. It's not about this kind of
Mhm.
positioning of getting bonuses or minuses. It's rather fuel for a scene being colored. What you might think of as a random encounter that it will be shaped by the fact that this one person is the lead on that scene initially. And I really
Mhm.
love how that comes together. It is the kind of system that can spawn many ideas out of it because of what it's putting together in a way that hasn't often been done with exploration systems. So that one, I think, since last year when I started delving into it, has just constantly occupied my brain space.
Yeah. My second answer is all of the mainstream implementation of great indie mechanics that have been around forever. So as we see things like Daggerheart using Hope and Fear,
Mhm.
which is really a distillation of other mechanics, and they say so in the book, right? They say we borrowed a lot of this stuff. Draw Steel says the same thing. We borrowed a lot of this stuff from these other games. So check out those games. Seeing those being used in new and different ways in a more mainstream game and having new players come and say, "Oh, this is so ingenious. Oh, this is the greatest thing ever. It's so new and innovative." It's like, no, it's not, but it's being used well, and that's the important thing. So that sort of newer game designers stepping away from what's been done over and over again in D&D and looking to these other games and borrowing from them in ways that enhance the game rather than just sit there and look pretty
Love it.
is is important.
So along that level, if I were to choose one that's a sort of general second thing, it would
Mhm.
be these RPGs that are trying to create a lighter mechanic system, lighter rules
Mhm.
system that has a fair amount of narrative freedom or
Mhm.
pushes on other aspects of the game, whether it's dungeon exploring or it's improvisational play. And probably the one that I like the most in this, it would be Pirate Borg, where I think it has a
Mhm.
really nicely done, but you could say Shadow Dark too, but really nice distillation of what a game engine can be to very
Mhm.
few pieces, but in ways that provoke really interesting and complex play at the table. And I love
Mhm.
seeing all these companies exploring with how to do that, right? Not just I
Yeah.
pared away systems, but I left things that will
Mhm.
prompt and push and create. And that's really neat.
Yep. And the last question is from Richard Green via our Patreon Discord. Which RPG is most criminally overlooked?
Mm.
I would say that all TTRPGs, including D&D, are criminally overlooked by the public as a whole because they're great. It's an incredible hobby, and as we talk about with Shelley, it's important for all different sorts of socialization, learning, and so on. But among the general TTRPG population, uh, like D&D, maybe Pathfinder, and maybe Call of Cthulhu are the only games that aren't criminally overlooked. Now, I'm not talking about the new games coming in. We don't know if they're going to be overlooked or not.
Mhm.
I would say the games that use the gumshoe system from Pelgrane Press are the most overlooked because Night's Black Agents, Trail of Cthulhu, Time Watch, all of those games are so good. They're so fun to play.
Mhm.
They give you a lot of freedom as the game master to do some cool things, but they still ground the players in a system that manages their resources and manages flow. But they just don't get a lot of mention while as we always mention Fate, Powered by the Apocalypse, and Cypher System and Cyberpunk and Shadowrun, right? We always mention those gumshoe games for me are always overlooked.
Yeah, and I think we try to mention them often, but it's a deeper. It's not just even mechanics like say the way they handle investigative skills, but all of the way that those games are written to create the experiences they do. Like I was just
Mhm.
thinking about this the other day. We've had a couple of games that I've been playing in my home campaign where you find that the same skill is being used over and over again. right?
Mhm.
It's a presence check in Pirate Borg, or it's a perception type check. I think it's notice in Savage Worlds Deadlands. And it's like the only check anyone's ever making, right? Unless you're
Mhm.
climbing something or something so obvious. It's like you just end up wedged into this. And so why are
Mhm.
there these other skills or attributes or whatever if they never come up, right? And something that Gumshoe does really well in a lot of their systems, and certainly in Night's Black Agents, is this idea of separating what are knowledge skills that will trigger normally, and then a set of skills that absolutely tie to things characters want to do, so that they
Mhm.
all come up often. That is really a nice, just things like that that are just so well done and thought of. But I think a lot of game designers don't walk around talking about them, which is a shame. Just a shame. The one other thing I'd say is 13th Age. I just think has
Mhm.
so many neat parts to it that are super interesting from a design perspective, that they might get a little lip service here and there, but really they should be emulated all the time, much more often.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for those questions. And now we're going to jump into our news and commentary section, starting with Japan launching a new D&D initiative. All right, Teos, tell us about this.
Yeah, unlike other non-US countries, Japan seems to somehow have autonomy and a dedicated staff that can try to market D&D in ways that will appeal to Japanese audiences, and they've been doing this in various ways over the past years, and now we're seeing a new push. They've had like a really fun trailer in the past with Japanese actors. They've had event swag at Japanese events that have character sheets with manga style art, hiring popular streamers and actors to play. And Japan's brand manager posted on LinkedIn recently regarding a new initiative, an original Japanese adventure campaign called Oni's Right Hand, set in Fandalen, but features characters from Karator. And they have pre-gens designed by renowned illustrator Toshiaki Takayama and D&D translator Masaki Yanagira, brought to life by popular voice talents including Ayana Taketatsu and Tomori Kusunoki. The response from Japanese has, this is I'm quoting, the response from Japanese fans has been overwhelmingly positive. D&D's global appeal lies in its ability to embrace diverse cultural styles, and we're proud to see Japan's unique creative spirit seamlessly integrated into the world of D&D. By weaving traditional Japanese themes into gameplay, we hope not only to delight existing fans, but also to grow the community and welcome new players in Japan. And so you've got a new trailer that is all in Japanese that introduces the characters in the campaign and various other social media efforts to push this. And I love it. I'd love to see this for more countries where, Europe could do it their way, and on and on,
Mhm.
right? Latin
Yeah.
America, I would love to see this approach. I don't know what's leading to this in Japan, but I love it and I want more of it.
All right. Well, you got more of the Fallbacks novel, Teos, which I know you like, because a new Fallbacks novel is coming from Penguin Random House. Author Johnson is back with this D&D novel featuring the adventuring group known as the Fallbacks. We did review the previous book called Bound for Ruin on the show. The new novel is called The Fallbacks, Dealing with Dragons. What's it about? Well, when the day is threatened by tyrannical foes or monstrous fiends, the people of Faerun place their trust in the realm's mighty heroes. When the mighty heroes don't show up, they get the fallbacks. You can buy the book now. It centers on the party's cleric who, rather than worships just one deity, strikes deals with many deities based on the party's need. And now those deals have come due.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I will definitely pick this up. I like how J. Lee Johnson writes. The books are just fun, great knowledge of the D&D system, how to represent the rules and all of that, and just fun, interesting characters. Good reading that you can quickly, tear through and have a fun time with some ideas. Yeah.
So you can get that at penguinrandomhouse.com or any bookstore that carries it. Sometimes Teos or I will find a news thing and we will run and we will put it in our show notes. And then the other person will run and put it in the show notes, but and see it's already there. And that's what happened with this one. I grabbed this, went to put it in the show notes, and it was already there. And it's DM David's 5 tropes that make exciting stories but ruin D&D games. David Hartledge is one of our favorite D&D bloggers. You can find his stuff at dmdavid.com. And he talks about this where in a story, in a novel, in a movie, this might be fun and exciting and interesting, but you try to do it at your D&D table and it generally falls apart quickly. And as I was reading this, I saw number one and I went, yes, okay, good. And I started in my head going, okay, what's two, three, four, and five going to be? And I think I got like four of the five
Totally.
right.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
so DM David is on the same wavelength as I am. The first is taking the characters captive. Rarely works well. Two, having someone that the party trusts betray them. Three, taking away the character's gear. Four, planning for the villain to escape. And five, having the players be hunted by someone or something. What do you think, Teos?
Yeah, absolutely. And we can probably all think of an exception where this might have worked well, but in general, absolutely, these things are problems. And I think that's the main thing is you just want to know this probably won't work. And so if you're going to try to do this, you really have to think about why it's worth doing and then how do you execute on that to actually pull this off. And I've seen it so many times not work well. Like I remember a living Greyhawk character, I think it was in Keeland, it was before you were Triad there, where the lizard folk would take you captive. And they would
Mhm.
do this with these, sleep-inducing darts. And we had, I think, 10 rounds of combat until they finally brought my monk down. And we were all just
Mhm.
laughing at this clear railroad moment that had to
Mhm.
happen. We had to get captured. And the
Yep.
DM just kept going until finally. it's just
Mhm.
it's that kind of thing. And David writes, all these tropes share a common element. To create them at the table, the DM must contrive a way for the players to lose. To set up the twist, the characters must lose a fight or be tricked by an NPC, and that's
Mhm.
just a great point.
Number five, having the players hunted.
Mm.
Yes, it's very true. I saw it done well in the very first uh, 4E adventure that I ran called Escape from Sembia that Chris
Mm.
Tulloch wrote for
Yeah.
the intro to fourth edition, where you do it as a skill challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
rather than having the combat play out where someone's
Yeah.
following them, you say the guards of this whole city are looking for you. What do you do to escape? And you could use all your skills, and you can use spells, and you can do those things. But you have to tell the players right from the start, if they find you, you're captured. We're not going to play the combat out.
Right.
It's just going to be what happens.
Yeah. There were fourth edition had a number of monsters that were lurker types that could do something that breaks fifth edition rules, right? So they could do something like drop the equivalent of a smoke bomb, move 5 feet, and become invisible, right?
Mhm.
Something like that. That meant those monsters could reliably get away from you, and so monsters like
Mhm.
that you could use to do things like the creature that is constantly hunting you as you move through the forest or something like that
Mhm.
because the monster had that capability and the addition lent itself to it. But
Yep.
outside of that, exceedingly hard to do.
We're very excited to return to Mini Corner, where Teos, you can tell us about the Stranger Things mini.
I mean, I love minis, and I also love to be critical of them because I want them to be all perfect and all amazing, every single mini, flawless in all ways. And there is a new Stranger Things minis set that you can now pre-order from WizKids called Heroes of Hellfire. Uh, you may recall that the last highly promoted set was a Baldur's Gate 3 set that they had to recall because it was so poorly done. We hope that's not the case here. This theme set includes the characters played on the show: Lady Applejack, Tear the Paladin, Nog the Dwarf, Sundar the Bold, and Will the Wise. And then we get classic D&D Vecna, Shawn, painted to resemble a
Ooh.
classic pewter miniature. So what it
Ah.
looks like is just a plain gray, silvery, not great Vecna. And the other miniatures aren't bad pewter versions. Why this? I don't know. But you'll get to pay $35 for it.
Oh, so it's not pewter, but it's painted to look pewter.
Yeah, it says it's classic D&D Vecna painted to resemble a classic pewter miniature. So it's just a all silver miniature. And I'm just like, give me a cool Vecna. Come on, what are you doing? Like, no, no, stop.
Okay. We have a an article by Matt Forbeck on metaphor and mechanics. So Matt Forbeck, obviously a legend in the game design, both board game and role playing game, and a writer, a fiction writer, etc. Matt shares his design insights with an essay that originally appeared in Kobold's Guide to Board Game Design. Uh, so what Matt says to sum it up is here, for our purposes, the mechanics include the hard and fast rules that make the game tick, the stuff you work with as you play the game. The metaphor is what the game is supposed to be about. And so do you want to lead
Yeah.
us here on Matt's
It
comparison between metaphor and mechanics and
yeah.
how they work together?
I love it. You know, he runs through Monopoly, roll 2d6, move, use fake money, right? That's all the mechanic of it. But the metaphor is each player is a capitalist who sets out to make themselves rich at the expense of those around them. And you win the game by accumulating all the wealth in the game and bankrupting everyone else. And it's like, oh yeah, that really that is such a terrible that is exactly the metaphor, right? And
Mm-hmm.
he says neither is more important. The good games are the ones that weave these two together, which Monopoly, you know, you could argue does that in a sense, right? It takes these things and marries them together, and that's why it has a strong presence, right? Everybody thinks of the
Mm-hmm.
image of the main Monopoly, you know, capitalist dude. Um, and he says mechanics are a great asset when you get them right because they make the learning the game easy and intuitive and create rewarding play. So they're absolutely important. D&D's rules constantly please players and become the basis for many other games because they do that so well. Metaphors should be really clear, and he puts together this template of game name is a category of game in which the players or their avatars do or compete for something by using the tools the game provides them. And he shows off some examples of things like
Mm-hmm.
you know, games that do that well, that deploy on that.
Mm-hmm. And then he says licenses might make metaphor easy. So if we get the Alien RPG, which we've talked about many, many times on the show, the metaphor there is pretty clear, right? You know that the game must find a way to weave that dynamic into play. Matt also makes the point that the interpersonal dramas of the X-Men may be cool as a story, but it might be very hard to bring into a board game, easier to bring into a tabletop role playing game. The key then is to find that fusion between the aspects. A great game will find the right mechanic and find the right metaphor to support each other. Um, if you have other elements that you try to bring in, you might be better to cut those unnecessary elements and just bear down on those key elements because they are the ones that are going to drive your game. Uh, what does Matt say about risk that really brings
Yeah,
this point
I
home?
love it. He points out how you could have an accurate map with all of the countries, but it's a lot more fun and a better game to have 42 territories rather than 200, right? And similarly in
Right.
Clue, Professor Plum might have a great backstory, but it would get in the way of the game of Clue, right? You just want
Right.
enough of that metaphor to feel like these are real characters in the game, but you're focused on what Clue is really about, right?
Mhm. And in our creator corner this week, we are going to get, apparently, a new Diablo role playing game. Could it be Teos? Are they going to bring Diablo to our tabletops?
So we hear. I mean, I recall there was an old third edition D&D version of it, but now we're
True.
getting its own role playing game.
Yep. So congratulations to Mike Olson, who was one of the several awesome creators who worked on this recently announced Diablo role-playing game. Mike is a backer of our show. He posts a lot on our Discord, and he's even been on the show to talk about the Fate game, the Fate core game
Yeah.
that he helped create. This game will be kickstarted in the fall, and you can follow the project at glasscannonunplugged.com/Diablo. Or the Kickstarter in our show notes. And we are now going to bring in Shelley Mazzanoble, author of the new book, How to Dungeon Master Parenting. We'll talk to Shelley about the book, about her role at Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro, and all the great things that gaming can do for you, including teach you how to be a good parent.
We'll also talk about Poison and Bret Michaels.
It's true.